Government steals from you via attorneys, state agencies, and the Internal Revenue Service. Constitutional due process no longer exists in the law or courtroom. The Department of Education altered textbook history to hide agendas. Without your consent, commercial schemes have been implemented by the U.S. Corps in D.C. that is posing as a government control mind and has militarily invaded the United States of America via Northern Command. This fictional world drags you into commercial reality of fines, fees, taxes, debts in court. Your labor is converted to fiat currency with a message, be a good citizen, do what you're told, shut up and vote. In this fictional world, the masses are subjected to playing a gigantic monopoly game where there's no real money and bankers win. Reliable sources, including attorneys, have revealed that law has no bearing on what happens in court proceedings, as much as the procedure that is only known by BAR members, that includes judges, prosecutors, and attorneys, including the defense attorney that is forced upon you, who extracts your time in the form of community service or slave labor, money in the form of bail, liens, levy, garnishment, fine, restitution, property in the form of your child, home, car, bank account, your liberty in the form of detention, jail, prison, probation. Attorneys may only represent your debtor, which is an artificial person. Court proceedings are administrative and not judicial as state and federal constitutions mandate. In administrative proceedings, the so-called courts refuse to explain the nature and cause of the action, never prove jurisdiction, never allow you to have counsel of your choice, and never allow the jury to decide the law in a trial. Those administrative tribunals are not constitutional judicial courts of due process. America, politicians praise the passage of bills that no members of Congress read, or bring before the unbiased masses for scrutiny because the federal Constitution is not for the people. Bills pass that profoundly restrict freedom of speech, property rights, and freedom of travel, but give public servants more power and authority without accountability to the people. Tax bills, federal, state, property, traffic tickets, child support payments come at you from them. Do you have the money to pay for this? You might be jailed or forced to do community service work to pay a debt to society. In 1933, the United States Federal Corporation bankrupted, resulting in acts that removed the substance backing America's money and replaced it with private corporation Federal Reserve Bank bankruptcy script. In the 1960s, the Uniform Commercial Code, or UCC, was adopted by all states. The UCC is the federal common law of negotiable instruments and governs all transactions because there's no lawful money backed by gold or silver. Therefore, you haven't really paid your bills or paid for anything pursuant to the law of payment since 1933. You have only discharged debt to a future time and have not obtained title. The bankrupt government had to finance its operation and can only tax what it creates. It created artificial entities known as ensleges, which could be a corporation or trust corporation, so it could tax it and send you the tax bill, presentments for fines, fees, and taxes. This scheme makes you believe the presentment is in your name. The government has divested you of your rights, titles, interest, property, and wealth via an undisclosed commercial program to rape, pillage, and plunder the American people, to keep private government corporations functioning. The solution is to recapture or redeem your rights, titles, interest, property, and wealth. Put yourself in the position with standing and capacity, status, and knowledge to accept for value and discharge debts as a secured party creditor, not as a debtor or slave. The American people are still the sovereign power. The Bible teaches that the Israelites are the kings and priests of Israel. Israelites translates to Ish = man, Ra = ruling, El = God, that means man ruling with God. When the country was supposedly freed at the conclusion of the Revolutionary War, the concept was established that A man is king in his own castle. Last but not least, the people have succeeded to the rights of the king, the former sovereign of this state. They are not therefore bound by general words in a statute restrictive of prerogative, without being expressly named. Therefore, do kings pay taxes? Due to the current U.S. core bankruptcy and commercial law, the people as sovereign creditors may discharge all fines, fees, taxes, judgments, and debts, and take control of all property, because there's no other way today to pay debt since there is no lawful money. Your status was changed to debtor-slave on the plantation for the financial benefit of corporate government. Before you is the path to redemption that contains a lot of responsibility. As the creditor, you are the banker. The Treasury indicates that as of December 2006, more than 55 million chargebacks were sent, in which equates to over 55 million secured party/creditors who are part of the sovereign movement revolution. Take your rightful positions over the government servant that operates those bankrupt corporations and the commercial scheme. Discharge your debts. In commerce, truth is sovereign, and therefore the sovereign always deals in the truth in commerce. Do you wish to proceed into the process of redemption? An undisclosed commercial scheme is being perpetuated upon every man, woman, and child in America since 1933. Commercial law has been in use since day one. Everyone is forced to honor Caesar and his private corporate rules, regulations, and statutes to support his de facto bankrupt corporation under democratic socialism, also known as federal and state government. People scramble for what they think is money to pay bills and live in what they think is a comfortable way of life. So-called leaders in their lust for power and money sold our fathers, us, our children, and posterity into bondage. Today everyone owes $1,000 to the national debt, but truthfully, the so-called government owes you that amount and a whole lot more for their fraud, damages, and dishonor against you. All that government does is in pursuit of its duty to provide protection for private rights, and that duty is a debt owed to its creator, us, we the people. Therefore they owe us. However, due to their unauthorized actions and corruptions, they have removed what was constitutionally established as real money, backed by the value of gold and silver. Therefore, what you think you owe, what they think you owe, what you think they owe you is of no importance when there is nothing in reality to pay with. The following are things a sovereign would say to a government employee: I will not make any deals with you. I've resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, debriefed, or numbered. My life is my own. You won't hold me. The sovereign can always triumph despite any hopeless situation because of our unrepentant refusal to sacrifice our ideals and self-identity. Control yourself well and join with others who are doing that well. Everything you have been taught is a clever lie and illusion. Truth is stranger than fiction. Cleanse your mind of the law. Renew your mind. Cleanse your heart, soul, and mind of the conditioning, also known as brainwashing. The programmers want you to believe that you are both the subject and object of the government. But in reality, the people are to be the principal and sovereign power in secured party/creditor capacity. Your debtor may be the subject or object of government. Hollywood is covering their karma by telling you truths on the silver screen, starting as far back as The Wizard of Oz and up to the Matrix movies and to this very day. They are presented for you to understand what has really happened and what to understand. The Wizard of Oz is a coded movie of what really happened to America. In any program or movie in America, you can discover clues and truths slipped in by the powers that be if you look hard enough at the programming. The Wizard of Oz is an allegory for the new state of affairs in America in the 1930s following the stock market crash and subsequent bankruptcy of the United States government. The Wizard of Oz symbolism is in every character aspect of the set, special effects, and props. The setting was Kansas, Heartland America, and the geographical center of the USA. In comes the twister, the tornado, whirling confusion of the stock market crash that left everybody economically dizzy. It signified the theft of America's gold, the coming U.S. bankruptcy, and the Great Depression. The tornado whisked Dorothy and Toto up into a new, artificial, dreamlike dimension, somewhere above the solid ground of Kansas. When Dorothy awakes, she finds herself in the land of Oz, where she says to Toto that she has a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. After the bankruptcy, Kansas was no longer Kansas. It was now KS, an artificial corporate venue of the bankrupt United States, newly established federal territory, part of the federal zone, and Dorothy and Toto were in this state now. Dorothy meets three characters with different problems. Their true identity has been decoded. The Scarecrow, a man of straw, a front who self-identifies his straw man persona for Dorothy, and he says, "Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking. Of course, I'm not bright about doing things." In his classic song, "If I Only Had a Brain," the straw man claims, "I'd unravel every riddle for every individual in trouble or in pain." Once one discovers his straw man exists, all political and legal mysteries, complexities and confusions are resolved or understood, and once one takes legal title or control to their straw man, they become the authorized representative of their straw man to accept and discharge or settle all commercial affairs, as in Oz, the new commercial world, aka the Matrix, because the straw man has no brains and no hands and fingers to grasp a pen to write the check, so to speak, to pay the fine, fee, tax, or debt. The second character is the Tin Man, or Taxpayer Identification Number, a hollow man of metal, a vessel, vehicle, newly created commercial code word for the straw man. Just like the Scarecrow, the Tin Man had no brain or heart. Both are artificial persons. A definition of tin in Webster's is counterfeit. The Tin Man represented the mechanical, heartless aspect of commerce and commercial law. Like the Mafia says, nothing personal, it's just business. Similar to the Mafia is the business of lawyering. Their attitude is nothing personal, business is business. The heartless Tin Man carried an axe, the traditional symbol for God, or modern commercial law in earlier dominant civilizations including fascist states. The Tin Man expresses relief after Dorothy oils his rusty joints by saying, "I've held that axe up for ages." Ace is etymologically related to AX. In a deck of cards, the only one above the king is the ace, God. An Axis power of World War II Italy was a fascist state. The fascism symbol is the fasces, a bundle of rods with an axe bound in the middle and its blade projecting. The fasces is on the reverse of the American Mercury head dime. The Roman deity Mercury is the god of commerce. It is found on the wall behind and on each side of the Speaker's podium in the U.S. Senate. Each gilded fasces is 6 feet high, and at the base of the seal of the U.S. Senate are two crossed fasces. The third character was the cowardly lion or king of beasts, and most feared jungle animal but was lacking courage. The lion symbolizes the once fearless American people who lost their courage. Americans are scared of the corporate federal system and local revenue collectors, cops, judges, so-called courtrooms or tribunals of justice or commerce. You might not know it, but the IRS has been dealing with only your strawman or debtor, strictly under the laws of commerce, and they are just like the Tin Man, heartless. Dorothy and her three companions learn they must visit the wizard by following the yellow brick road. Gold, known as yellow bricks, are melted into ingots. All one need do is follow the trail of America's stolen gold, and you will find the thief who stole it. At the movie's beginning, the wizard was represented by the traveling mystic, Professor Marvel, whom Dorothy meets when she runs away with Toto. His sign reads that he was acclaimed by the crowned heads of Europe, past, present, and future. That Professor Marvel must have been a wizard to be acclaimed by the future crowned heads of Europe before they were even crowned. Before the bankers stole America, they disempowered Europe's Christian monarchies and looted their kingdoms. Professor Marvel knew the future that others didn't. With a human skull looking down from above the door inside his wagon, the professor lectured Dorothy of the priests of Isis and Osiris and the days of the pharaohs of Egypt. Dorothy and company emerge from the forest. They are elated to see the Emerald City only a short distance away. Then came the Wicked Witch of the West, desperate for the ruby slippers that Dorothy is wearing, as they held special powers. In the original book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, published 39 years earlier in 1900, the slippers were silver, but for the movie were changed to red to be more colorful. At the time the book was written, America still had all its gold and silver. The value of 1 ounce of gold was 15 ounces of silver, with silver being more plentiful of the two and known as poor man's gold. Just as the silver slippers carried Dorothy, America's stockpile of silver and gold, backing the currency, carried the country to a position of preeminence throughout the world at that time. But, when the movie came out in 1939, the slippers were not silver, but red. Between 1916 and 1933, America's gold was rounded up by privately owned Federal Reserve banks and shipped to the Fed owners in England and Germany. The reason for this was that Federal Reserve notes could be redeemed in gold, and the use of Federal Reserve notes carried an interest penalty that could only be paid in gold. The American people were defrauded into trading their gold for worthless paper with green ink on it. Our previous currency, United States notes, carried no such interest requirements, but such was the bargain that came with the Federal Reserve notes. JFK was murdered because he was reissuing United States notes, interest-free, by a 1963 U.S. and not Federal Reserve note. When the bankruptcy was declared in 1933, Americans were misdirected to turn in all gold coin, gold bullion, and gold certificates by May 1st, known as May Day, the birthday of communism in Bavaria in 1776, the birthday of the IRS, and celebrated worldwide as the International Workers' Holiday, a holy day to the wizard and his tribe. At that time, the sentiment toward this thievery bordered on a second revolution. Ruby-colored slippers' significance on documents is that it is the color of blood, as in flesh and blood, and symbolizes living, breathing men or women, non-corporate, non-artificial. Red might have been chosen for the related tie to the international banking Federal Reserve founder, the Rothschilds, aka Red Shield family. It does signify private, as opposed to public. Your Social Security card has a red serial number on the back, signifying the private side bond account attached to the public side of your strawman Social Security account. For postal employees, red sticker registered mail means personal accountability or private. All other mail carries limited liability or public. The ruby slippers might symbolize the American people with blood in their veins as opposed to citizens of the United States, straw men with the counterfeit corporate blood of blue or black ink on a birth certificate. No matter their color, the Wicked Witch of the West wanted those slippers before Dorothy made it to the Emerald City. The witch's tactic was to cover the countryside with poppy flowers, the source of heroin, opium and morphine, symbolically drugging the American people into unconsciousness, and then just waltzing in and snatching the slippers. In other words, the best way to subjugate the American people and boost the goods was to dull their senses by getting them hooked on drugs. LSD was created the same year, 1939. The poppies affected Dorothy the Lion and Toto, our flesh and blood friends, but not the Scarecrow or Tin Man, the artificial entities. The two of them cried out for help, and Glenda, the Good Witch of the North, answered their prayers with a blanket of snow, aka cocaine, a stimulant nullifying the narcotic effect of the opium on Dorothy the Lion and Toto. Aside from marijuana, the two most available drugs on America's streets are heroin and cocaine. As they traveled toward Emerald City, the city of green Federal Reserve notes, the new fiat money or money by decree, the Munchkins sang on the glory of the wizard's creation. You're out of the woods, you're out of the dark, you're out of the night, step into the sun, step into the light, keep straight ahead, for the most glorious place on the face of the earth or the stars. That song abounds with Illuminati Luciferian symbols and metaphors about darkness and light. The Wicked Witch of the West made her home in a round medieval watchtower, ancient symbol of the Knights Templar of Freemasonry, who practice witchcraft and are credited as the originators of modern banking, circa 1099 AD. The Wicked Witch of the West also dressed in black, symbolizing the planet Saturn, sacred icon of the Knights Templar, and the color of judge and priest robes. The Wicked Witch of the West in the first part of the film is Elmira Gulch, who, according to Aunt Em, owned half the county. Miss Gulch alleged Toto bit her. She came to the farm with an order from the sheriff demanding they surrender Toto to her custody. Aunt Em wasn't cooperative and told Miss Gulch that Toto is really gentle with gentle people. Could gentle mean Gentile? When Miss Gulch defied them to withhold Toto and go against the law, Aunt Em had to push the party line for Big Brother. She dutifully, like most American people, succumbed to the pressure and counseled Dorothy reluctantly, saying, "We can't go against the law, Dorothy. I'm afraid poor Toto will have to go." When Dorothy refused to surrender Toto, Miss Gulch lashed out, "If you don't hand over that dog, I'll bring a damn suit that'll take your whole farm." 70% of attorneys reside in the West America. 95% of the world's lawsuits are filed under U.S. jurisdiction. The Wicked Witch of the West and Miss Gulch represent judges, attorneys, and the American legal system, including the attorney-run U.S. Congress. They are the executioners and primary henchmen for transferring all wealth in America from the people to the banks and government. The Wicked Witch of the West wanted the silver slippers, the precious metals, and her counterpart Miss Gulch wanted to take Toto. In attorney language, Latin Toto means everything. Dorothy finally makes it to the Emerald City where they are brought before the wizard, a gigantic image speaking in a loud voice behind glass, similar to smoke and mirrors. Dorothy and the gang fell for the wizard's illusion, power, and commands in the beginning. But it was little Toto who, by his instinct, pulled the curtain back to expose the fraud of the wizard, a frontman for the wizard, an agent for the fiction, this wizard the people feared. The wizard, this gigantic image speaking in a loud voice behind glass, symbolizes television. Government power speaking lies to the people via TV. If people see it on TV, it must be true. People believe their government. Dorothy and the others wise up and reveal the wizard for what he is, a confidence man. When asking the agent, administrative agencies about helping the scarecrow/straw man, about getting a brain, he gave the straw man a piece of paper and a diploma from a university. Wizard cites the land of e pluribus unum, which is Latin for one out of many, or converting the many into one new world order, or novus ordo seclorum, a Latin phrase placed on the American $1 bill shortly after the bankruptcy. The wizard confesses he was born and bred in the heart of the western wilderness, an old Kansas man. The wizard gave the Tin Man a ticker or clock to sound like a heart, but it was not. To the lion, he gave a medal to signify that the lion had courage. These all, of course, were mere trinkets in the land of Oz, a fictional world. The bankers did well in Europe, but the wizard points out, they made a killing in the western wilderness, America, with the theft of American gold, labor and property. Quoting John D. Rockefeller, grateful and responsive rural folk who populated the country at that time. When Dorothy asked Glenda, the good witch of the North who represents honesty, good faith and Christianity, for help to get back to Kansas, Glenda replies, "You don't need to be helped. You've always had the power to go back to Kansas. Just click your heels together 3 times like the 3 days of truth in lending and say, there's no place like home." Translation: You always had the right and power to reclaim your sovereignty, but forgot or were not taught that you and all Americans have such power. Oregon's Bill of Rights says the people have all power. Since the people are the true sovereign power, then it's necessary to wake from the dumbed-down, drugged-like effect the powers that be have over the American people, as to that power and position, and exercise it. The remedy to reclaim your sovereignty in today's bankrupt commercial world: send a UCCL form to the Secretary of State, and a chargeback invoice with bill of exchange to the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, wherein you take commercial control of your straw man with a TIN number and charge up your UCCC contract trust account so you can discharge the debts of your debtor. Americans know the heartless mechanics of commerce laws, serially applied by the unregistered foreign agents of the IRS accounting firm and collection agency for the private Federal Reserve Bank. The IRS was constituted under the UCC in 1954. The Wicked Witch was accidentally destroyed by a bucket of water. The true substance of all things, good and healthy, simple water destroyed the evil, just like the zero in ozone destroys virus and bacteria, cancer, did the oxygen in the water destroy the evil witch. The meaning of the title, The Wizard of Oz, is in the dictionary. Like everything, it's there in the open if you will look. Wizard is a clever or skillful person. Oz is an abbreviation of onza, the Italian word for ounce, the only unit of measurement of gold, silver, and precious metals. The Wizard of Oz was the Wizard of Ounces. The bankers and lawyers took the gold that backed the America's money as agents working for the foreign principals, the private Federal Reserve constituting the 20 Class A stockholders, being mostly private bankers, all orchestrated and greased by politicians then and still today. Politicians refused to correct the matter and put full and absolute power over the control, creation, minting, and putting into circulation of United States money backed by gold of substance and value. Today's commercial system is better for everyone as long as everyone understands the program. The Wizard of Oz was the introduction to the program of the monetary condition and changes in America, but no one gave full disclosure to the American people of the change, or how to operate in this new commercial world where all the real value was removed, and all that was put in its place was commercial paper. Everything worked out for Dorothy, who symbolizes the American people. She made it home, meaning there is remedy in law. It's just encoded, disguised, and camouflaged. The code has been cracked, and there is a way home. There's sovereignty for sovereign people. We have commercial remedy in the redemption process. The con by the confidence men, the wizards of smoke and mirrors on TV, is over now that you recognize the scheme. Now you can become a secured party creditor, private banker and sovereign to take your place among others who are above the government, instead of being a debtor slave on the plantation living your life in debt and servitude. There are only debtors or creditors in America. No law, only the law of contracts and agreements and commercial paper. Follow the yellow brick road, follow the money trail.